espacio también más creativo en el COAM y tenemos a unos ponentes de muchísimo nivel. Entonces, bueno, para empezar hoy, tenemos aquí a Bror Salmelin para hablar. Él viene de la Comisión Europea, en concreto, su cargo específico es Advisor for Innovation Systems de DG Connect de la Comisión Europea. Exactamente, ¿qué significa eso? Él dirige un grupo liderado por la industria que asesora a la Comisión Europea en temas de innovación abierta. Entonces, bueno, para hablarnos de todo esto es para inspirarnos un poco más y darnos algunas pautas de esas palancas de innovación. Me gustaría invitar al escenario a Bror Salmelin. Mr. Salmelin, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you for the kind invitation and introduction to the topic. I speak about open innovation and really looking at the new paradigm, new behavior in the new technology. I'm responsible for the innovation systems development in the European Commission and look at that from different angles. What I think is important for industry is to see that the societal behavior has changed. It's not that predictable as has been. We are living in a society which we can see the developments, but we need to be prepared for the unexpected. And as a business strategy, we need also to seek the unexpected, to be prepared. The society is volatile, it's uncertain, it's much more complex than every time before, so we cannot predict the future. And that is, I think, one of the important strategic decisions any company needs to really understand. We cannot predict the future like we did before. We in Europe have been very good in making the best plans for the future, but they have been turned out to be best plans for yesterday. We cannot, in the changing society, we cannot plan for the past. We don't have time. And when we look at innovation, it's really a parallel activity. We are not looking at innovation in the linear model anymore, where you start from basic research, then go applied research, industrial research, applications. We need to progress with parallel paths so that we can manage the uncertainty and the complexity much better. So again, what you will see very concretely from, for instance, European research programs is that they are innovation programs. They are not anymore research programs alone, because we are trying to take these several parallel paths into account. Then innovation, we could spend several days of talking about definitions of innovation. I do not do that. For me, innovation is simply to make the idea happen. Innovation is nothing before it's real, it's taken up. And how to make that process faster and more successful is again the key of the behavioral change, of the organizational change we are all in. So again, the science-based linear innovation model is not anymore applicable. We see user-driven innovation, we see open innovation, we see more systemic approach in this complexity. And I will illustrate that with some important things. For me, when looking at innovation, it requires courage now, much more than before. If you think about, again, the research-based linear innovation, it was safe, because you could always predict the next step. But now we need to step into the unknown, to the world which is not controllable, to behavioral change of all the stakeholders, which is not predictable, and where actually the opportunities needs to be taken from this change. So again, it really requires a different kind of mindset of the companies as one of the key players. We need to embrace change. We need to have the guts, we need to have the courage to even seek for the unknown. Don't go for the buzzwords. Well, I hate politicians speaking about buzzwords. Quantum leap is the technically smallest leap you ever can have. Momentum, well, the people praise about momentum. Momentum is something very static. It's not reflecting the dynamics. The same with innovation. It's a buzzword today which is solving absolutely every problem in the world. But it requires a lot of thinking behind what it is. When speaking about knowledge, when first theories about internet was emerging, we spoke about democratization of innovation because everyone would have the knowledge. Everyone could share the knowledge over the internet. But actually the future showed very soon that actually the world became spiky. Talent attracts talent, and where talent is pooled together, there you have economical activity, there you have growth, there you have prosperity. And of course you can see that on this map on global scale. The question for us is, do we have enough of those spikes in Europe? Do you have enough of those spikes where you as companies are in, so that you can be attractors to the talent and pooling again the growth development over disciplines together? How do you see yourself in a pool, in an ecosystem of talent? And are you actively working for you to be in there? There are quite interesting studies showing that the more you have diversity, well, this is from MIT from 2002, the more you have diversity in the team, the more likely it is to have breakthrough innovations, those which really make difference. And if I look at, again, you as industrial players, what you are looking for, or should look for, is breakthrough innovations which make a difference. If we have homogeneous teams, one-disciplinary teams, we are getting more of the same. And I think that is important when we are looking at the competitive edge, when we are moving into the digital industries. How do you benefit from digitalization of industry through your behavior and through your positioning in the ecosystem, taking into account that the more diversity you have, the more you have probability for breakthrough innovations. This relates also to the entrepreneurial landscape, and there you see actually the European dilemma. We are quite well positioned as a continent, but we do not have strong enough of those poles, those competence areas as some other seem to have. That is one element where we are putting quite a lot of effort to really develop digital innovation hubs, sites, attracting talent throughout Europe so that we get that also. But again, we are in a global competition. There are no children's tickets in this game. When we are looking at the digitalization of industries and the digital transformation, I would really highlight the opportunities. We should look more on the business transformation. We should look more on the new value creation through behavior and technology. You could say the upper right corner of that slide. We shouldn't put too much attention of just improving the old. It is consuming energy from the better one. And from again, wider perspective, what is important there is that this kind of transformation requires societal transformation, industrial transformation, technological transformation, but also legal, you could say regulatory transformation. So again, it's an interplay between all of us in that scene. Again, what I urge you is if you want to progress towards some direction which requires, for instance, legal changes, please let us know. We want to move a lot more faster than has been before, and we want to do experiments even with legal and policy matters so that we can identify the pain points which need to be tackled from the public player perspective to enable business model innovation properly. What I think is important is also to see that the business models themselves are moving. We shouldn't think about the linear value chains anymore. We shouldn't even think about networks. Because again, the world is a lot more opportunistic. We do not know a priori when we are starting something with whom we will actually need to play to get the end game right. So it's about value constellations. We need to know our role, our place in the business ecosystem, in the societal ecosystem, in the market ecosystem, to be able to really grab those opportunities. And we will have much more dynamically changing connections beyond the traditional networks. The problem with the traditional networks is that very often they are used to increase the redundancy of a supply chain or value creation chain. But they are not, by nature, creating new business opportunities. And the new business opportunities through digitalization is, I think, very important. When we are converting business strategies to the Maslow hierarchy of needs, some of you probably know that, we see that most of the companies are on the lowest levels there. I would say normal, you could say cost saving, even customer satisfaction is there. But what we claim is that this is not enough. The real competitiveness comes from where your company is positioned in the ecosystem, how open your company is towards different kinds of inputs, even outside your own comfort zone. The richer the connectivity towards other disciplines, the higher the probability for breakthrough innovations. Of course, it says that the basic things need to be right, but it's not enough. When looking at another angle of societal behavior, we in DG Research had a study on behavioral structures within companies. And what we could say is that the old established companies and the majority of the companies are, again, on that circle on the right-hand downside, where the management, the behavior is very much based on security, comfort, control. And what we can say at the same time is that the new companies which are being established, the unicorns, the fast-growing companies, very much in the ICT field, are much more agile. They are managed in a self-organizing way. They have very few hierarchical levels internally, and the behavior can even be considered by some hedonistic. And what is interesting when we look at that result, those companies who are more agile, self-configuring, they are surviving better in financial austerity times because they are, by curiosity and openness, able to transform themselves faster. When we take this picture and reflect that to the Fortune 500 companies and reflect to the fact that Fortune 500 companies, actually the average life length on those is shortening. So again, we see that the new generation of companies are very much taking the role of what the old companies had before. Again, worth thinking about how you make that kind of a culture internally in the company that is agile, curiosity-driven, and I would say even more purpose-driven than organization-driven. I know it's quite radical question from someone who is working in a rather stiff organization. But again, when we are looking at the success factors, these are clearly those. So again, when looking at innovation policy, it's about openness for collaboration, openness for ideas outside the comfort zone. Organizations will transform more to what I like the word organization, where you have the organization combined with some organic behavior depending on what you are doing. So you don't have the fixed structures. You are more driven by purpose. You are more driven by the tasks you are doing. When looking at, again, this special sector we are now in, automation, control, measurement, we are very often in a very, you could say, conservative sector by nature. But it doesn't mean that these skills, which are so prominent in this sector, couldn't be harvested and interlinked to something else more related to creation of new markets. Because again, we are really moving towards those innovation constellations. And what I think is important is that when we are creating new markets, we need to have all the stakeholders on board from the very, very first beginning. The idea is really to bring ideas to real-world settings, do experiments there, and get very fast experience of what is failing, what is scaling. Again, a different behavior and very much focused on the new market creation. We have, well, you could say the citizens, the marketplace. We have all the stakeholders, vendors, technology providers. We have academia. We have, again, the infrastructure of municipalities all driving towards these kind of new services and new markets. And these have a clear role in all that. And that's why we have formulated the Open Innovation 2.0 paradigm, where we actually go down to the granularity of competencies and try to see how these competencies are being configured together for, again, the purpose-driven tasks the organizations are doing. It's a fundamental change in mental behavior of companies. And when we are looking at open innovation as a tool, what we can identify clearly there several, I would say, critical elements how to do it. First of all, experimentation in real world. Bring experiments with all the stakeholders at the early stage, see what scales, that's a good business case, and see what fails, because then you are not wasting money on the wrong things, not much money. You need to have the discovery learning. You need to have the mindset of daring to seek for the non-predictable. You need to have the courage to change. Because again, when we are looking at digitalization of industry, it's not just digitalization, it's really positioning the companies, the services, and the whole process where these services are being placed in a different way. And what I think is a challenge for companies in the ecosystems is actually the orchestration. When we are designing something which is for common purpose, we need to have the conductor, like we have a conductor for an orchestra, to pool the talents together, to make them play together, and to deliver. Who is the orchestrator in your ecosystem where you want to position yourself? Have you thought about hiring those kind of people in the companies? Because the paradigm change is real. I speak about Open Innovation 2.0 because there the people component, experimentation component, breaking boundaries component seem to be really the powerful tool. If we look at the old definition of open innovation by Henry Chesbrough from 2003, it still was the linear process. It was cross-licensing between organizations. What we want to go is further than that, really make the contracts within the ecosystem for creation of the new markets. I will not go too much into the details of the presentations because you have them all available after and during this conference. When looking at innovations, and that is what you see all around you, it's in a way a body sport. You combine different kinds of competencies, you merge them, you test them. So we have in those ecosystems, in companies, in organizations, need for new professions too. I start with the curator. Take the analogy of a art exhibition, where the curator is taking care of the contents on a certain topic and also the quality for the others to enjoy. Then you have the bridgers. Those who are curious people are able to talk with everyone and interlinking this curated content. You have the orchestrators, which I spoke about before, and then you have the systems designers who make the ecosystem interaction possible. What is the dilemma today is that the bridges and curators are very often in organizations seen as non-productive persons. And they are first sacked when we are looking at against cost savings. Though they are the most important companies for the longer term future of a company. So again, how do you change the culture from doing everything internal to actually be part of the ecosystem where you have a different kind of value proposition for your own business future? And therefore, again, what we have done with Martin Curley, who is Senior Vice President of Microsoft today, former Director of Intel Labs Europe, we designed the idea of Open Innovation 2.0 with different kind of, well, we played with the letter P there. You have heard about public-private partnerships, 3 Ps, public-private people partnership, 4 P. But there you can see this, the center is really about people. Again, we think the people, you could say customers, are key collaborator for you because that you can use as creating new markets. You have the platforms, where we will hear about one, or actually several technical platforms today, more on IoT, cloud, big data, that kind of technical environments, but also the ecosystem where you can do all this experimentation. Prototyping is important. Prototyping and experiments, as I said, fail fast, scale fast, and then we can move ahead, etc. What I think is important is that we are moving from a culture of projects to experiments, because again, projects are not allowed to fail. Experiments allow you to have a different kind of mindset of exploring better and better and better. We have a transformation from organization or instrument-driven projects to purpose-driven experimentation. And I think there again, the mindset of how you position your own organization in this transformation is really, really critical. We are really speaking about an entirely new innovation space itself. And the challenge is, in this digitalization, is how you yourself position yourself in that ecosystem. Technology is enabler. Technology is not enough. And then a last remark. When we are looking at and embracing the change, when we are looking at the uncertainty, many organizations like ours fall into the trap that when we are asking the future of an area, we ask experts on that very area. And what do we get? We get a linear extrapolation of the past. We do not get the interesting points on the edges. Extremes should be also of our interest. What might be new? And then tackle on those which are more interesting from the extremes and not just the ordinary. Because then we can look more actively towards the unexpected, and then we can have also more strongly the aspect of developing entirely new markets with our knowledge base, what we have in our organizations. So don't forget the edges. There can be very many golden nuggets in there, and how you filter out from those extreme ideas the best ones. You can use experts, but you can also use cheap prototyping technologies. Well, if I think about prototyping as such, it has gone a lot cheaper with examples like 3D printers or different kind of software platforms which are already available. But again, what you can do, again, with a lot more success is really to go to the markets, to the ecosystem and do the experiments there to verify, kill or scale something which you have found in the extremes. So again, when looking at the digital future, we have those platforms, like mentioned in the slide, 5G, IoT, blockchain, cloud, etc., etc. But it's not enough if we do not embrace the change in our own behavior and our own strategic positioning of our organization in the ecosystem to have faster, higher success rate of our developments. What I think is important is really the people component based on the red text there. If we look at all fast-growing unicorns, all of them are based on user-generated content or strong user communities. How can you benefit from that phenomenon itself when you are positioning yourself in the future is the big strategic question. How do you get the users on board in what you want to achieve together? So again, I stop in the first question. If you do not do the transformation, if you do not do the experimentation into the behavioral part, what's the cost of your company, for your company? The cost of not transforming. And that is what the opportunity cost is what you really could focus on, because again, this digital transformation of industry is creating tremendous opportunities. And it's not just about digitalization, some existing process. It's really about looking at the company positioning, the company processes, your relationships with the ecosystem you want to work in. It's really a different game, what I want to say. And from our perspective, when looking at European innovation ecosystems, what we will do is we will provide the kettle. We will provide some of the funding, that is the fire. But we will not say what kind of soup should be cooked in that kettle, or we do not claim that we are the chefs who are bringing up the results from the kettle. It's you. You are the chefs. You are those who are bringing the results into your own business strategies, into your own positioning, but help us also to put the right ingredients into that, and that I think is important. We are there to create good framework conditions, good regulation for digitalization, both of the industry itself, but also the behavior and its positioning in the ecosystem it wants to be. We have plenty of the think tanks. I don't want to have any more. I really want to have a lot of experiments to see what works, what doesn't. Early stage, all involving experiments with the mindset that those experiments are allowed to fail. But then again, also bringing results which are scalable. The quadruple helix, that is the involvement of all the stakeholders, public, private, academia, and the citizens, you could say the society, are important, because then you have a powerful environment for developing new business models, new value propositions for all, and you have also the opportunity to capture a wider set of brains into your own advantage. We have our next Open Innovation Conference in Cluj, Romania in a week's time. I assume it's quite a late announcement for you to attend, but we are also video streaming. There is the outcome of the conference and some important sessions there, so please follow that. We will have good speakers internationally over there. And if you do have any questions, well, feel free to ask, contact us. But really also reflect that it's not enough just to do digitalization of existing forms. It's about behavioral change and positioning your own organization in the ecosystem. Thank you.